So if you identify as female, can you please stand up? Making us move today. Thank you, thank you. My ladies here. No. We're standing up. I have a question for you, ladies. If you consider yourself to be a sports fan, meaning you root for at least one sports team, remain standing. If not, sit down. All right, so we have a good chunk, I'd say about, I'm not great at math, 85% female fans. I'd love to see it. You may now all sit down. If you identify as male, stand up. We are moving today. Same question for you. If you consider yourself a sports fan, you root for at least one sports team, remain standing. If not, sit down. All right, I'd say like 85, 90%, same goes. You may now all sit down. So for those sports fans out there, you probably know this, but I can definitely identify with you. I am what you would call, I wasn't thinking the shirt through, a super fan, particularly as it relates to Penn. These are Penn State Sox. State. Football. I love it. And to give you perspective of my fandom outside of Toastmasters, Spotify, music streaming service, they do this year-end review of what you listen to the most. In last year, at the top of my list, sports podcasts. In fact, I ranked in the top 4% of all sports listeners worldwide. Now, Spotify does not do this, but if you were to zoom in and look exclusively at Penn State podcasts, I can guarantee I am in the top 0.0000001%. I'm truly obsessed. Yet I find it's funny when I meet people for the first time, what often happens, I'm weird, I go on about Penn State football, my passion, share some knowledge with others who probably could care less, and they look at me like I'm crazy, like, there's no way in hell this girl cares that much or knows what she's talking about. It must be an act. But it's not, and I do care that much. My brother, on the other hand, has quite a different experience. He too is weird and is obsessed with Penn State football. Yet, when he shares his knowledge, his passion with others, he's not questioned like I am. And in fact, for people who know us both, they more often go to my brother than I when they have a question about Penn State football, despite the well-known fact that I know so much more about football than he will ever know in his life. So why is this? It's not rocket science. We're not Getty back there. It's got to have to do with gender. I'm a woman, my brother's a man. And sports are traditionally a male-dominated domain. And there's this old school thought that women just can't be sports fans. But I take you back to that exercise at the beginning. The majority of females were fans. And the percentage of male fans versus female fans was nearly identical. And if you zoom out on the greater US, you would see a similar trend. Men still do dominate the sports fan demographic, but that gap between men and women as sports fans is narrowing, and it's narrowing significantly. Now, despite this rise in female fandom over the past couple decades or so, what is fascinating to me is the sports media industry is the exact opposite. Women hold just 15% of roles within the sports journalist industry, just 15%. And this marks as the lowest female representation of any journalist beat, by far. If you look at the second lowest beat for female representation, science and technology. Women hold 38% of those roles. That's more than double the sports beat. So not only are low in these roles within sports media, but men are dominating the high visibility roles. And what do I mean by that? Well, just turn on a sports broadcast right now. You look, who's holding the anchor roles? Who's the play-by-play? Who's the analysts? It's probably guys. You'll see women throughout, but more often than not, they're relegated to the sidelines, like our neighbor here, Erin Andrews. So when you have this disproportion in female representation in the sports industry, I have to think this impacts fandom, at least the perception of women as sports fans, right? Now you might be thinking, yeah, right, exactly, but who really cares? I mean, we're talking about sports. It's mere entertainment, no big deal. Anyone feel that way? No judgment here? I mean, maybe a little judgment, just kidding, just kidding. But if you did feel that way and you're just not sharing, I understand where you're coming from. But what I'm here to say is that this is not a question about sports. This is fundamentally about gender equality, and we're using sports as a lens to examine it. And why is this? Well, like it or not, the global sports industry, it's part of us. It is massive. Recently, it was valued at $2.65 trillion, making it the 9th largest industry in the world. So when you have this massive industry that's covered by media, overwhelmingly dominated by men in both numbers and visibility, what happens? What I suggest with this big underline underneath happens is gender stereotypes are reinforced, women are marginalized, and the idea that sports is a male-dominated domain is perpetuated. All of these issues impact society because they all take us further away from becoming a gender-equal society. Now, I go back to that word suggest with the underline. I say that because this is just my theory. There is very limited research on this. There's research of women as sports fans, there's research of women within sports media, but how the two intersect, specifically, here it goes, the impact of female representation in sports media on fandom and society abroad, that has yet to be explored. And this is exactly the research gap that I aim to address with my PhD studies. I may not, scratch that, I will not be able to solve this issue alone if it does prove to be an issue, but what I intend to do is bring light to a potential issue so that we could collectively work together so that no one, regardless of their gender, has to be questioned by their fandom. Thank you.